invite them to say just like 1 minute. Don't say more than 1 minute. Just to introduce yourself. And you can do anything you want to say in 1 minute. Please. Okay. Go ahead now.
Thank you so much. All right. How many of you are excited today? Woo! Well, thank you so much, Hmong Chamber of Commerce, for putting together this forum. My name is Nelsie Yang, and I'm running for Council Ward 6, and to really honor our elders and also community members here today who speak the native language Hmong, I want to spend a few seconds just really addressing them. 我昨天有上咗單車俾咗年紀嗰啲揸出嚟啦，聽咗單車有咗那咗我嗰啲學程計路去正經多，就俾其他嘅好多 forum 咯，咁呢聽上呢之後上我俾成俾嘅 city council members 嘅嗰種 share 出嚟係點好多 forum 可能個俾上嚟學到對說係點俾咗幾次聲聽到人我就俾就俾成上嚟要得持日等啲咯，然後好過咗呢有點呢有曬一世呢就少呢多麼有得拉啲的呢保係點睇上嚟呢可以開頭我。比較 leaders 呢，亦落開始多 engage 到比較 community members 中型，因為對社會上呢有社會比冇學 voter suppression 到出嚟才到係啲頭對真係冇辦法咯，比社後活動呢有社會咁我就變成都辦法最差，嗰種些係啲從來有從我比較包很多有讓很多我都說咗當頭比較變成睇人 power 咯，講好多辦法從比較 community 講你冇到好種呢。So thank you so much for all of you for being here. My name is Nelsie Yang, and it's such an honor to have a packed room today because this is what St. Paul Ward 6 has needed for over 20 years. This is the place in St. Paul where we face the highest levels of voter suppression, and every single day I wonder who is our ward actually working for? Because when I go out to the doors, when I call and I talk to people, I ask them, hey, do you know how you can get this pothole on your street fixed? Do you know how you can get assistance, to put down a payment for your home? Do you know how to get this fixed in your community? There are so many people who wish that they had the answer. And what I love about our campaign is that we are going out there, engaging them, empowering them to make change with us, uplift their voices, because that is how we can actually create a community that works for all of us. And so I would love to engage with all of you after the forum if you live in Ward 6, and even if you have family members who live here and you don't live here, I would still love to connect with you as well. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Swift, and I am very humbled to be here. I've just announced that I'm going to be running for City Council Ward 6 in St. Paul, and I am very thankful to be included in this forum. So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about issues, and it's something that I've been doing for a while as a community organizer as it is, but really to get out and empower community to participate in the civic engagement process.
Good evening, you all. My name is Alexander Boyd, and I am also running for St. Paul City Council Ward 6, which covers much of East St. Paul. Quite frankly, I'm running simply to uplift the voices of those that have been marginalized the most, okay? And once we are elected, we're going to embrace policies that adequately reflect who we are as a community and abolish those that do not, okay? And I just ask for you all support as we continue to take the necessary steps to move forward accordingly to get across that finish line first. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Thaj-Av. I'm a mom, a homeowner, and someone who was happily raised here in St. Paul. And I've lived here with my family for over 12 years. And so I'm really excited because as many folks here, we know that the voices of folks here on the East Side haven't been included in the process. And for many years in my professional personal work, I've been making that happen. So I'm really excited to come tonight to share with you all about my vision and my plans, and to also ask to engage with you all about what our future could be for the East Side.
Ward 6 is rich in history and diversity with many barriers and challenges. What do you see are the top 3 challenges facing Ward 6, and share how you plan to address these challenges? So I'm going to start with Nelsie this way, and we'll come to question the other way.
Thank you so much for your question. When I think about why I started organizing in the first place and started getting involved politically from someone who grew up, very not politicized and then later became politicized. A lot of the reasons, a lot of the things that really energized me and motivated me to, start using my voice was to really eliminate poverty, because that was something that my family experienced. My parents came here as refugees and had to really start life from scratch and build their way up. And even within my family, I saw that outside of my family, so many families had the same story. Around poverty, and that there are so many policies, that actually perpetuate poverty in our community. Right now, you asked me about 3 top issues, right? Right now, we have a shortage of affordable housing, and housing is not affordable right now. We have skyrocketing costs to it. As a renter, this is something that my neighbors and we talk about every single day, and we need to invest more money into ending homelessness and building affordable housing in our community. Here in the East Side, I talk to so many older folks, about 2, twice, 3 times my age, who say, Nelsie, I really want to find a place to work here in the East Side, but then it's really hard for me to. So what's important to me is talking about how we can collaborate with business owners to support our small businesses, make sure they are thriving, and then also bring in jobs and increase job opportunities that pay livable wages for every single person, and also are giving equitable benefits to every single person as well. And when I'm on the phones and talking to neighbors and even myself, I think that there is so much we can do to invest in our youth, invest in families, and making sure we give them opportunities, whether it's going to safe parks or creating programming that will benefit everyone. Family is the most important thing that we need to protect and build here in our community, so I'm invested in that.
Thank you.
Well, I think that a lot of the issues that we see on the East Side, they tend to overlap with each other. So if we're talking about youth development, we're talking about housing, we're talking about business development, and all of these things, they play into each other. One of the biggest things, I think, to enrich communities is building relationships and really engaging. So being intentional about going into communities where they are not being asked what they thought, they're being overlooked. And as far as the history of East St. Paul goes, I have learned that we have a very racist background, and there are a lot of ideologies that play into what we see today in our communities. And being honest about that, and being honest about restorative justice, and going directly to the most oppressed voices, and really lifting them up. Because when we start from the bottom, then we can start to see those things filling from the top as well. So really focusing on our youth, our young people, I think is where our wealth is at. And I think that it's important to give them hope to building a better communities, because it is our community. Affordable housing is something that I feel very strongly about. My background is in real estate and community development. And what I've learned about East Side community is not everyone is ready for home ownership. And that's okay. We have to be able to adjust to our community where they're at and talk about renting it. That's where we're at, and tenant rights. And then also giving people the opportunity to start their own businesses and get into entrepreneurship. I think that as millennials, we are always looking for ideas on how we can be self-sufficient and work for ourselves, which I think is a great idea. And I'd really like to explore how we can support small businesses.
I can get the feeling already. Y'all are going to get a lot of things that seems redundant from the campus, because I think in so many ways we share a lot of the same sentiments. We just have a different way of articulating that. And for me to essentially echo what they just said, I would just say that we, people of color in particular, need to make sure that we have equitable access to not only home ownership opportunities, but also entrepreneurial related resources. We need to find ways to make sure that we are governing through an equitable lens that is aligned with the rights of our immigrants. Okay, we have a very growing population of immigrants. Okay, one community that comes to mind that's not really reflective in this room tonight, but throughout our community on the east side, is the Hmong community, M-O-N. Okay, this is a group of immigrants that doesn't even have translation in at no level of our government. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are placing ourselves in a position to adequately represent these individuals once we are in office, okay, and find ways to uplift the voices of those most, that fills most voices, okay. And we do that by creating policy, and the beauty of that policy is that it can change, okay. When you think about what drives policy, it's culture, it's perspective, it's lived experiences, it's religion, right? And all of those things play a huge, role in the policies that shape. So we need to make sure that we are selecting individuals that has the true ability to adequately reflect who we are as a community. The number one issue that I think is played here on the East Side is the lack of bonding. We need to be more communal. We need to find ways to work in concert with one another. We have a lot of great people, a lot of great organizations that quite frankly are doing a lot of great things, but the problem is they're not working in concert with one another. And one thing that I want to do is I want to figure out ways that we can bring people together and do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the top 3 issues. So housing, what would I do about it? When I was on the Planning Commission, we supported accessory dwelling units, which is allowing people to build tiny, well not quite tiny homes, but smaller homes on their properties. That's something that's not citywide. So these are housing issues we could address. In terms of affordable housing, I would work to make sure we get, a lot of people think we have a lot of affordable housing here on the East Side already, but that's because we have housing that isn't in the best condition. So how do we work on rehabbing housing? There are some people who want money to fix their homes, which the city has money to do. So I would work to promote those programs because I reinvested in my house recently, and that matters. It means I stay, and I feel like this is a community worth contributing back to. Another issue that's come up is public safety, which ranges from crime in some neighborhoods, and not always the big crime, but quality of life issues. I was out door knocking and we saw a group of cars that got spray painted, and it's little things like that that make people go, I don't really like living here. So how do we work on finding some community-based solutions about doing things like planting, cutting shrubs, better lighting, because we know that sometimes the police aren't able to respond to all of our calls, and at the same time for public safety, how do we get some of the beat officers back, or how do we get people patrolling the streets more often? I heard from a lot of Eastsiders as I'm out on the phones and on the doors that they don't even see too much of a police presence in their area. And sometimes we're not saying all the time, but a little bit is helpful. And absolutely economic development and jobs. I'm really interested in how we can create, leverage public projects for local jobs, right? As well as options like cooperatives to help support small businesses. Minnesota is a very rich state, and so we just have to make sure the resources come here to our residents because we have a lot of them and a lot of young ones.
So the second question said, there are many issues and public opinion facing Ward 6. How do you solicit or evaluate public opinion on an issue? And to what extent should public comment or meeting attendance factor into a council's decision, meaning city council decision? In other words, how do you make choices for the entire community when faced with competing ideas or voices? So this is a long question, but just in case you didn't get it, ask me, I'll repeat it again.
Yes, thank you, I got it. I was actually having this conversation earlier, and when talking to Ward 6 is extremely diverse. We have a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, and when you can peel back layers of language and perspective, really most of the East Side are all asking for the same thing. We all want to be safe. We all want to have high values on our properties. We all want our kids to be safe going to and from school and have things to do. We all want the same things. And I think that our backgrounds and perspectives give us different ideas on how we can get there. But as an elected official, I think it's our job to go out and to ask people and to be authentic about listening to what our community is saying, because the answers to our problems are in community.
I think for me, it's a matter of creating the spaces for people to come and have their voices uplifted. And so one thing that I've been doing over the past few months is I have 4 weekly events that take place, right? And this just goes into this accessibility that we want out of our city council member. This goes to the transparency that we want out of our city council member. We have to create those spaces for people to come. And so I have 4 weekly events that take place and have been taking place and will continue to take place all throughout the election. And if I'm elected, they will continue. Okay, and that is simply to find ways to uplift these people's voices. Perspective matters, okay, and everyone has one, right? And so being able to dissect issues and move towards measurable solutions is something of interest of me. That's just how I am. I figure out what the problem is, figure out who's my players and who's going to be working with me, who's going to be working against me, and then we figure out ways to move towards measurable solutions. And that's not going to change once I'm in office, okay? Right now, on every piece of campaign literature, any promotional item that I have, it has my direct cell phone number. You all have my cell phone number. You call me, you ask me questions. My phone number has not changed in years, and I can almost guarantee it's not going to change anytime soon. Okay, I want to be transparent with you all. I want you all to know that I am accessible. Okay, call me. Okay, come to that table. We have to. They say, oh, we just want a seat at the table. No, we don't. Because the fact of the matter is, we got to bring the table. We got to bring the chairs. We got to bring the tablecloths. We got to bring it all, and the silverware that we're going to eat with. Okay, come, please. We have these spaces for you. Let's start this conversation now. Let's be proactive and not reactive. Okay. Thank you.
So this is a body of work that actually, I mean, I've been doing for many years in my career. Going out to meeting people where they're at. I've been down at City Hall. I see who comes out to public hearings. They do not look like this room, right? And so I know that the process itself isn't really set up for folks who have busy schedules and for families to come give their opinion. That being said, I think there's lots of different places. Certainly Facebook is a key, you know, social media is a key forum for us to get solicit opinion on. But I also think, you know, sometimes we, at the public level, we deal with hard decisions all the time, right? And we have to go back to, I think, what Danielle said is what's core and what's really important. But we also have to be honest about the challenges we're facing, right? We want things, but sometimes they may come at a higher cost. So we just have to ask ourselves, are we ready to pay for that? I think these are the hard decisions that public officials have to deal with. But I appreciate that a lot of people in the community are willing to come, and we also need to have opportunities to come co-create solutions together, right? So not everything needs to be top down. It actually, our solutions come from our communities themselves. The decision to make Maryland Avenue 3 lanes came from community members who lived here, right? And I think that's what a good council member does, is elevates those opinions to a broader audience, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
All right, Nelsie.
Thank you. I really I appreciate this question, because I feel like it is dismantling this belief that we have in our society, where as an elected official or person elected into office, you have to have all of the answers, and you are the savior in the community. And that's certainly not why I'm running for office. I'm running because I'm running for Ward 6 people, residents. I'm running for the people who have always been marginalized in our society, in our community, which is typically people of color, LGBTQ members, and people who live in poverty, and so much more, people with disabilities. There is so much. And in order to have a council member who is actually getting people to the table, it means that we need a council member who's willing to go to people, instead of waiting for the traditional way of politics, which is waiting for people to come to them. Because let me tell you what, 20 years of doing that didn't work for me at all. And so I'm running because I want to have a very engaged community. I want to be able to live in that. I want to be able to have roundtables in the community with farmers. I want to be able to have roundtables with small business owners, with parents, with people who have disabilities, everything. And we actually need to do this work in coalition. We need to all be at the table together. And you asked me about how we make decisions when we have competing opinions. Well, I say that we cannot settle for one decision, and we cannot allow us to think that one decision is going to serve every single person. This is why we actually need to, when we create policy, we need to go back and make sure that it's being enforced, And we need to make sure that we get community input. Is this policy actually working for you? Is this ordinance working for you? How do you feel about it? What are the loopholes, or what are ways that it's not working for you, so that we could actually go back to the table together and work on it? So, you know, we have to understand that we need to keep working together. Living in a community means that we are here for the long haul, and that is what I want to be able to do with all of you. Thank you so much.
All right, moving along to questions number 3 now, and that's Alexander. Number 3 says, how frequent have you attended or watched city council meetings over the past year? What is the ordinance that is currently on the agenda? Describe your thought process. You decide how you would vote if you were elected. This is very specific questions, but answer to the best you can.
Absolutely. First question was, how many meetings have I attended? Numerous. One that stuck out to me the most. Was the Pedro Park issue. For those that don't know about the Pedro Park issue, Mr. Pedro was an entrepreneur here in the city of St. Paul. He reached an agreement with the city of St. Paul that says once St. Paul police vacated the premises of a building that they occupied, that building will be turned into a it would be turned into a park, an expansion of an existing park. Okay, that deal was made, it was sealed, but that deal was not honored. Okay, and if it was up to me, we would not have sold that property that was supposed to be converted into a park. It wouldn't have been sold to a developer, in my own personal opinion, at pennies on a dollar. Okay, as for issues that's currently on the docket down at City Hall, it's everlasting changing. That's a really good question. I haven't been there in 2 weeks, and so I don't know exactly verbatim like what's on the agenda and how far down you're asking. So I would just ask for a little clarity on time frame. Is there a particular issue that you have in mind that you want to know, like how I would? Ramsey County, I'll just mention this one only because Mrs. Kyle alluded to it earlier, the expansion of Maryland Avenue, 3 lanes, okay? We got $1.9 million right now that are about to be wasted on expanding the lanes on Maryland Avenue between Edgerton and Arkwright, 3 feet on each side. It's a waste of money. We need to reprioritize how we do business in the city of St. Paul.
Yeah, a lot of, I know a recent case they were working on were cases, when I was on the Planning Commission, we would often see them go up to council. And I think a recent case they were looking at was the German immersion school, which is over in the Como Park area, and they were looking at whether or not it was, historic, because the school wants to tear the building down and build a new building because they have a lot of students there. But at the same time, they have, a lot of neighbors were like, well, it's a historic property. And so I think those are kind of sometimes they're not very exciting issues that are dealt down there at City Council, right? It's looking at very site-specific, zoning-specific cases. And so, many of which I saw when I was on the Planning Commission, as well as the big picture cases, and obviously the city budget too. So those are some big issues. On the German immersion school, I think the Planning Commission, which agreed that it wasn't, it didn't really meet some of the historic regulation guidelines, and so that's the way I would have agreed with my Planning Commission members and forwarded that on to the council, and that's how I probably would have voted on the council too.
So at the City Council, some of the issues that have been I've been most attentive to are issues that really impact working families. Because I feel like working families have always been the center and like the ones to really build our community and economy to be what it is, and we need to protect them. We need to make sure that we give them opportunities. So issues around organized trash, around the $15 minimum wage, around making sure that we have good benefits for everyone. Those are issues that I care deeply about because I'm also a working person. And we need to actually make sure that policies are positively impacting our families, especially in Ward 6. I want to use this opportunity to talk about a really big discussion or issue that will be coming up. which is instead of like fully answering your question, because this is, you know, if any of you live in Ward 6, like this is something that I want us to talk about together, which is the new system for organized trash in our city. Because currently there are so many families right now who are paying more for their trash services than they were before. And vacant lots have a trash can there. If you live in a duplex and you don't need the extra trash can, you get another trash can, even if you don't want it. And so the conversations like these, right? Like it's really great because we have found a way to make sure that we have a trash system that where everyone has a bin. However, it's not working for everyone. And so part of this is about engaging our residents, our families here in Ward 6 to empower them to use their voice so that we actually get to a system that works for everyone. And so this is a really, really big topic and hot topic coming out for Ward 6 and our city overall. And so I want to have a conversation with all of you about it after the forum. Thank you.
I've been to City Hall and City Council meetings various times throughout the last year. Most recently, what I'm working on that is involved with City Hall and the City Council is there was an amendment to the budget this past December, and there is a grassroots organization called Root and Restore St. Paul that I've been working with over the last couple of years. And we are trying to be innovative about ideas and how we can have community safety beyond policing, because police is a huge part of our budget. And I think as one thing when we're talking about what we need as a city, we always fall back to this, which I believe is a false narrative, that there just are not enough resources, when actually we have a lot of money and we just have to be very intentional about how we allocate our dollars and how we prioritize what issues we're going to be dealing with. One of those ways, because we can't just make more money, is just being smart about where we're spending our money. So $1 million went toward a police budget, and we're talking about public safety. Now, I think that if we have, which we do, a grassroots organization of volunteers, community members who are working to come up with alternative ideas, but we have to have a leader and leadership who is willing to listen and put trust in our communities, just as we would hope that our communities put trust in us to make the right decisions.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to go to questions number 4, and that will be to Terry. Start first. Question number 4 said, the Hmong community is an emerging politically, socially, and economically community. What are your plans to incorporate them with your decision making and better partnership?
Well, I think, similar to the other process I said earlier, was we would go to where the community members are at, right? And so, and go to things like Facebook forum. I don't think the added advantage for me is being Hmong is like I have can do the linguistic understanding, and I can speak the language and the culture. And I think a key thing, whether it's Hmong or other communities, is we have to not just interpret, but we have to explain the impact of the policies that we're going to have. So I would go to communities where they're at, take in lots of different data points before making a decision, because I think, you know, the process is the same for whomever is there, right? We have to be clear about what we're asking people to do. These are things that I would constantly ask folks at the city to explain. I said, that's great that we're going to, you know, invest this money, but what will that mean? Can I go home later and can I explain that to my mother-in-law and home? And I think that's a really good way for us to think about our policy impact, is whether or not we could translate it into other languages or ask others to translate it into other languages too. And I think the Hmong community is an emerging community, and we've emerged. We're not emerging, we've emerged, right? When we have Hmong Village, when we have our 5 legislators at the Capitol, all Asian ones are all Hmong, we've arrived, right? And now it's about that next level of what more do we want for our community? Where do we see ourselves in the community? And, you know, and we're now 2nd, 3rd generation here too. And especially in communities that are very multiracial and diverse, like here on the east side too.
All right, so we'll start with Elsie.
So I'm a Hmong American. I love the Hmong community so much. I have so much respect for them. Like growing up as a daughter of refugees, growing up, I didn't have a lot of role models, and when I looked around, my biggest role models were Hmong community leaders who stepped up to the plate, saw that we were facing racial injustice, economic injustice, and started their own organizations, not just limited to Hmong 18 Council, but like the Hmong Chamber, HABA as well, the Hmong American Bar Association, and they have grown so much and progressed so much. And for me, like growing up, they were equivalent to my council members, my governors, my president. I looked up to them so much. And what I saw, the biggest injustice that I saw in American politics was that when our community leaders stepped up and raised their voice about a concern, there was no one to answer. There was no one to respond. And even if they asked for a budget for something that they really cared about, it was almost like they were swept under the rug, and there was so much neglect, not just to the Hmong community, but to communities of color. And I say that because at the end of the day, we all face the same types of injustices, and we have to see how that injustice is deeply connected to each other, and that we actually cannot get out of that injustice until we start partnering up. Partnering up to make sure that, for example, for the Hmong community, I would love to see us have more community gardens here. Like there are so many of our elders and parents who farm, and they want to have a local place to go and farm. I want to see their businesses grow. I want to see whenever they want to rehabilitate or improve their stores, that they could actually ask for support from the city and they get funding for it. I want to see them have programs. I want to see us have programs for our youth that is catered to allowing them to learn about their heritage, learn about their language. And these are after-school programs that the city could easily invest money into. So the bottom line of what I'm saying is that we need leaders who will fight for their values, put money where their mouth is. And that's what I'm going to do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it would be the same for any community, and that is to build relationships authentically. And also, identity. What does that mean? I think identity is something that is really important, especially when you live in a society that expects you to conform. And I think it's important to honor culture. And on the East Side, we're really diverse. But Hmong culture is very rich, just like Somali culture, just like Black culture that we see across our ward. And so I think allowing space to honor culture and to participate traditionally and respect people to come and for where they feel safe and open to do that. And I think that will set the ground to be able to make authentic relationships, and once you have those relationships, you'll be able to co-create and build together. So it would be the same just like with anybody, and that's being real about getting relational with people.
Thank you, Alexander.
Pardon me. So for me, I feel like in order to adequately represent the Hmong community or any other community here in the city of St. Paul, because be mindful, once elected to the city council, whoever is sitting up here, someone's going to be elected, and their job will be to govern the whole municipal body, okay? And in order to do so effectively, they need to understand the culture. Okay, the cultures of other communities. And I feel like I've done a great job in taking the lead on making sure that I understand the Hmong community. That's why not majority, but a great portion of my campaign team is Hmong. Okay, that's why a great deal of my advisors are Hmong. Okay, because I do understand the political capital that they have, not only here in St. Paul, but in the city of St. Paul. Okay, and I've learned a little bit. You know, the number one thing that I hear from the elders within the Hmong community is simply preserving the language, okay, preserving the culture, okay, and I think that's what any culture, and they want to be preserved, right? And so I think early on people talked about, you know, essentially protecting the fabric of the East Side, and Ms. Swift pointed out the fact that, you know, like we don't really want to protect that, right? And that's absolutely true. But the culture of the Hmong community is definitely something that we want to protect, okay? That's absolutely something, and that's something that we will do diligently and be attentive to and treat it with a sense of urgency. Again, I have 4 weekly events that take place, and they're not canceling anytime soon. Come, show up. I always tell people the #1 way to get your voice heard, show up. Don't expect to get invited. You're not going to get invited, okay? Show up and show out. Okay, but it starts with making sure that you're registered to vote in the homes that you're living in, okay? That's a very crucial component. If you want to obtain true political capital, you must be registered to vote in the homes in which you live in, okay? In order to do so, you have to be at least 18 years old before election date, a U.S. citizen, okay, even if you've been convicted of a felony, okay? As long as you are not on active probation or parole, you can get registered to vote. And if you are a convicted felon, still show up and exercise your vote. Uplift your voice, excuse me.
All right, so we're going to move on to question number 5, and that's to Nelsie. Question number 5 said, what are your top 3 priorities to help Hmong families moving from poverty, similar question to earlier, currently sitting at 57% to prosperity?
This is a really important topic to me, and also a vision that I have been working every day to get toward. It's also what really politicized me, because I started organizing to eliminate poverty. It's something that we all face no matter our race, our age, gender, background. And to me, what is really one of the most fundamental things that we all need as human beings is we need a roof over our head. And so that means that we need to prioritize housing, affordable housing, and also housing that is not just for single-family homes, but also we need more apartments. We need more diverse, multi-level housing in terms of like duplexes, townhomes, so much more diverse housing, because this is how we can actually make sure that we have housing available that matches families' needs, because not everyone can afford a home. Also, what is important to me is making sure that we really build our economy here in Ward 6. Earlier I mentioned job opportunities, and right now so many Hmong employees are earning low wages. They're low-wage workers. They have been maybe almost their entire lives, especially immigrants and refugees. And for them, speaking up about the economic injustice that they have faced is something that they have never been allowed to do. And so I think that one thing that we really need to work on is bringing more job opportunities here, making sure they have livable wages and benefits for everyone. And I also believe that just because you are someone who is living in poverty does not mean that you need to be deprived of having a better community. In areas where we do have deep systemic poverty, we need to make sure that we have all the resources available to them in terms of green space. We need to make sure that they have really great programming around them. We need to make sure they have simple things like trees around their areas. These are minimal things that we often don't think about, but as a council member, you have to actually start thinking about trees, and you have to start thinking about how you want the community to look like. And I feel like, for me, making sure every community has an abundance is really, really important.
When I think about issues and I think about meeting people where they're at, I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we talk about, first we have to address the most basic needs of people, which are like food, water, and shelter. So I think starting there, like I said, housing is kind of where my background is, but being mindful about different people's lifestyles and how they live. Intergenerational living is something that was a new concept to me, you know, where you have parents, their children, and then the grandchildren all living within the same household. And I mean, that right there is something to think about, especially when we're talking about new development and what housing looks like and how it's affordable. And you know, if we're building 1- and 2-bedroom apartment units, is that going to work for a family of 6 or a family of 8? And so I think just being realistic about knowing what people need, and then also having enough, being bold enough to go against the grain, because sometimes you're going to go against the grain. In our area is going to be different than in Mac-Groveland or in Highland. And so I think it will be the responsibility of the next Ward 6 candidates to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position to say, wait a minute, we're not thinking of everyone here. And so my tactic would be just to be bold and to be slow to make decisions and ask a lot of questions, and always going back to community and relaying that information so that we can take it all into consideration when making decisions. And that's for communities of all cultures across the board.
All right, Alexander.
So, for me, it's reimagining what equity looks like for people. Okay, we make up a third of the population, but still get a seventh of the budget. Okay, that's not equity. Okay, and so people talk about, you know, creating this pathway to prosperity, but what does that that pathway really look like for you? Okay, and for me personally, it's making sure that we have equitable access to, when I say we, I'm talking about people of color. Let me be very specific, okay? This includes the Hmong community, it includes the Vietnamese community, it includes the Somali community, the Hmong community, the Hispanic community, right? Because we have all been marginalized in the space of opportunity, okay? And this is something that we really need to take a look at, okay? We need to reimagine what equity really looks like. That's the number one thing. Second thing will be to make sure that we have equitable access to home ownership opportunities. And I think the lady before me alluded to, development in our communities. Well, we need to make sure that we understand that we don't need developers in our community. We can use and leverage our community to be developers, okay? Like, we can do this collectively, okay? We don't need outside people coming in and telling us how to, live our lives similar to trash, right? I don't think anyone has a problem with with organized trash. It's more so the implementation of how it was just another example of government coming into our communities and telling us what is best for us, okay? And as a result, they didn't really take it into consideration of the additional fees that we are going to have to incur, right? So we need to minimize the amount of bull crap that's going on. Okay, and understand that, like, the power is really in this room. The power really is in the people. Okay, and you just got to show up.
All right, Terry.
Yes, thank you. First, we have to. Poverty is not a choice, and also the way cities were built. It was intentional that we have all the pockets of poverty that we do have here on the east side. And so just like that's intentional, we need to build our way out of that, right? And we need to say we're not. We can actually work against that, and we can actually to build a better community for everybody. The top 3 priorities, we've talked about community development, about having jobs, but we don't talk about things like the trades, which are good jobs for people. We don't often share in our communities about where the good job opportunities are. We all know about the temp jobs, right? But we don't talk about the other ones that pay livable wages for families. We also, when we talk about priorities for housing, it's things like getting money to fix up houses. A lot of people live in multi-generational households, not really because of culture, but also not because they can't afford to. I've got young people who work $12, $13 an hour jobs, adult children who are living at home because they can't afford to move elsewhere. And that's what keeps people from moving ahead. We all know there are things that like daycare and additional costs that makes it really hard for families to be successful. So the combination of getting good jobs, looking at housing, and also and housing choices, and also really asking for more resources, right? I think Alexander talked about a seventh of the budget. We may need more here on the east side, and I would happily go down to City Hall and say we need to advocate for more dollars, right? We can't just sit here and expect less is less, but we actually need more. The school district built a brand new middle school because there were so many young people here on the east side. Well, if the district can ask for money for that, at the city we can make a statement that says, well, if the population is here, the growth is here, then we need the resources here too.
Hmong small businesses are booming, but without a lot of local support. What is your plan to make sure Hmong entrepreneurs are thriving?
Entrepreneurs? Entrepreneurs?
Entrepreneurs, yeah. Pardon my language.
Well, right now I don't know the answer to that, but I think that when you ask, well, what do you need? You have to ask what someone needs. I think that we look to people who are in positions of leaderships to give us the answers. We feel that they are the experts. And really, elected officials are regular community members, as you can see. Before we get into the seats, we're just community members. But we have to be intentional about asking people what they need, because then they will just tell you. It's not about a guessing game or trying to determine what someone else needs, but being wise enough to just go to the source and ask them what they need. And so I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, what booming small businesses need. But I know that I have the intention to be speaking to people and asking them what they need, and then bringing that back so that we can implement it.
Based upon my interactions with Hmong entrepreneurs, not only here on the east side, but throughout the city of St. Paul, the number one issue is figuring out ways to streamline DSI. Right now, it is too hard to do business in the city of St. Paul, and it doesn't matter if you're a small restaurant owner, like those here at Hmong Village, or if you are looking to, create affordable housing simply because you could afford to do so, right? At the end of the day, it is too hard to do business in the city of St. Paul, and it should not be. One thing that I would propose, if elected to the city council, and my team is already working on, is creating a one-stop shop, okay? A one-stop shop. We have too many different departments within DSI, and it's just the real issue becomes it's a breakdown in communication, right? And it's causing businesses not to really truly thrive, because the fact of the matter is, although we have more people of color opening businesses, right? The fact of the matter is we're not owning those properties that we're doing business out of, okay? And then we have so not only are we paying astronomical rental rates, right? We now have different departments coming in and ticketing business owners for very small things that could be modified right then and there, but simply aren't given the opportunity to, right? And so now they got $600 fines every 2 weeks is due. I mean, it's just really ridiculous right now, okay? And I'm sorry, I'm a sharpshooter, straight shooter. Like, it's just simply too hard, okay? And it doesn't have to be. These are preventable things, but we have to understand the importance of being proactive. We have to reimagine how we organize, okay? If I'm elected to the city council and you have an issue, and I agree with how we're going to move forward, that's cool and all. But you know what I have to do? I have to go and get the support of at least 3 other city council members in order for us to be effective on the council. So what does that mean through a proactive lens? That means the same way that we are organizing in our communities right here on the east side, that's the same way that we need to be organizing in at least 3 other communities. And with those people, we're not talking about bringing our groups and our coalitions into other communities around the city to build coalitions. We're talking about using people within the communities in which they are in so that we can be effective when we move forward to the council. Thank you.
All right, so having been an entrepreneur and grew up in an entrepreneur family, this is a question that affects me. Have a lot of personal experience, and also I was the board chair at the Asian Economic Development Association for many years and sitting on that. So I know there are things we need around loans, right? How do we get people loans? And the loans we were making there at ADA weren't a lot of money. Wasn't a lot of money. It was like maybe $10,000. So we know sometimes businesses need loans, right, to help them cash flow or to buy them new product. We also need to ask entrepreneurs about space, right? How are their how do we think of the spaces they're in? How do we think about rehabbing those spaces? How do we leverage some city dollars? Did people know there was city money to help them do facade improvements, right? For that. I don't think a lot of people knew that if they own their own building, right? And so, or sometimes you can even be a renter and you can still do those improvements too. I also think helping Hmong entrepreneurs, man, they have amazing ideas. When we did the night market each year, it was Hmong entrepreneurs who came up with those frozen ice cream roll ideas, right? They literally went from 4 months from a tent to a brick and mortar shop. And that's what happens when we invest and bring really innovative entrepreneur ideas to the table. So that means we might need things like co-working spaces. All those other neighborhoods have them. We need to have them here on the east side. Don't tell me that we don't have brilliant minds here who have creative entrepreneurial ideas that we can grow and incubate here. You know, that would totally, imagine people start being like, yeah, look at that east side over there and all those great ideas. And that's exactly the type of entrepreneur environment we want to build. The last but not least, a lot of home businesses, I know a lot of folks have home health cares and a home health care business. And I know a lot of times that was restricted by state regulations. So it's not just a DSI issue in the city, but when we look at state regulations, that we need to be at those tables talking about those rules too and how they impact our small businesses there.
All right, Nancy.
So I have so much respect for entrepreneurs here, especially small business owners here in Ward 6 and also our working families, because I feel like every single time our city asks for more like tax dollars, we have a levy. It's always like working families and small businesses who are actually making up for the things that we actually need funded in our community. There's been so much injustice done to them over and over, but then they're willing to do it because they are invested in community. They are more invested than like large corporations that we are always favoring and giving tax breaks to. And so whenever I have a choice to buy an apple from a small business or from Cub Foods, even though it costs more at a small business, I would go there because I know that I'm supporting a family. And being a business owner, very expensive dream. Like my parents, we wanted to open up a Yang family grocery store, and we couldn't afford it because we're poor working families. And so that was a dream we never got to, but then I still aspire to open up a coffee shop when in about like 10, 20 years. And so to me, like making sure that we actually support, have a pathway in supporting small businesses is really important because I know all of us, there are many people in here who want to open up businesses, and making sure that we actually invest in programs that are giving low rate loans to people who want to start up a business is really important, especially to business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs who are typically from marginalized communities. To me, what's also important is making sure that that we have a listening ear to them. And I want to share something really quickly. For the past 4 years, I've been working with a group of friends and organizers and organization to get a traffic signal built right there by Johnson and Ames. And for 4 years, we've raised our voices. We've talked about the importance of pedestrian safety. We talked about how dangerous it is to actually drive your car or even just cross that street. And the first time that we raised this issue to our council member, he said to us, "You need a traffic study done, but we won't issue it. Like, you should just stand by the corner and count the cars." Like, that's the type of injustice that small businesses face every time. And we need a council member who's actually here willing to listen and work with people and say, "Hey, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to fight for you." That's what I'm going to do for all of you.
So this question said, and now I don't have the order, so I will start with Terry because I started with Nelsie earlier. So the question said, what is your position on minimum wage? Do you support or not support? How do you balance between $15 per hour and hurting business owners?
So I am supportive of the $15 wage increase. I also think the city did a good job listing as small business owners and putting us on small business owners on a longer timeline. When I talk with small business owners, they want to pay people $15 an hour, right? They know, because they know that money comes back into the community in the form of disposable income. Let's also be clear, $15 an hour still isn't even enough to cover rent for a lot of things and transportation and all the costs that families have. But a 15 is a step in the right direction. I think asking small business owners to get there on a longer timeline makes a lot of sense because they're trying to figure things out too. They want to pay themselves that much money, right? And so some of them are working, like I remember working in my family business. You would work, I worked maybe $5, right, as a young person. Maybe I shouldn't sing that, but it really is, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and especially immigrant entrepreneurs who have invested so much money. So I think that's going to be fully supportive, and hopefully that will get us there. And that what we'll do is marketing, and by patronizing local businesses, we'll be able to give them the money so they can pay their employees.
All right, so we'll start with
$15 minimum wage. I support the concept, the reasoning, but let's be clear. People are talking about a minimum wage. I'm more interested in a livable wage, okay? And understanding what that pathway to prosperity looks like, for that is something of interest of me. I do not necessarily agree with the way that $15 minimum wage was implemented into the city of St. Paul. I don't think, to their own account, members on the city council, that they actually had time to adequately hear from the small business owners that were going to be, or at least felt that they were going to be impacted. We all know that they're not going to, but the fact that they had to live under the notion of uncertainty, okay? Like that, in my personal opinion, is not how a government should operate. And so, again, it's kind of like trash, you know, the lack of transparency, you know, the lack of inclusion throughout that process. And so those are things that I would, you know, work on if elected to the city council to make sure it doesn't happen again, okay? Yeah, like, we want our businesses to thrive, but the fact of the matter is here in St. Paul, well, that's really all we have, and do business, okay? And we need to find ways to uplift them. What that process really looks like what that process looks like right now, I don't really know. But together, collectively, I'm pretty darn sure we can figure it out, okay?
All right, thank you, listen.
Oh, this was a tough one. Mostly because I am a strong supporter of small businesses and entrepreneurship. And I heard loud and clear from small business owners that it's difficult sometimes. Yeah, we want to pay a minimum wage, but we just can't afford to. And on the contrary, you need money to live. That's just a fact. And we know that the living wage in the cities is like just under $21. So raising the minimum wage to $15 isn't even cutting it to making it to where you can afford to live. But I think that that's why it's so important to be inclusive on conversation. You have to have both sides of those. And to Nelsie's point earlier, the taxes, you know, and knowing that for small businesses, especially small businesses of color, one of the biggest barriers is just working capital. You know, how can we be mindful of what we're charging businesses and taxes and things like that? How can we offer more capital and more working capital to small businesses? And so that in the long run, they're not working and running a business just to break even, but so that they're able to afford those opportunities to people. So I think having a constant conversation and always looking at both sides of the coin, from the worker and from the business owner, so that we can have a balanced solution so that everyone can live a life that has quality.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. So from day one, I've always supported the $15 minimum wage. And to me, it's an issue that really hits home, because when I think about where my parents work, they've worked at the same company for about 20 years now. And in the span of 20 years, they have only gotten a $4 raise. And imagine if that was you. Imagine if you worked where you are now, if you are working, you've only gotten a $4 raise in the span of 20 years. That is one of the biggest pieces of injustice that working families have ever faced in terms of like wages that are unjust for us. And so it's something that, you know, I knew from the start that I supported it. It's a way for us to actually dream bigger about how we hold corporations accountable. And to me, you know, I actually want to sit down and talk with our business owners down the road about how this has actually been impacting them, because as I said earlier, we might pass, you know, ordinances in our city, but how it is actually followed through, we don't know, you know, what that's like. And so this is an opportunity for all of our business owners to raise their voices, raise their concerns, so that we can actually, you know, think about what a livable wage is for every single person. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So this last question, I'm gonna mix it up with a final thoughts as well. So the question here is from our audience saying, you all have shared very similar issues and concerns, but what are your key experiences that make you the most qualified to lead and represent the community, especially the East Side Ward 6? So that will start with Alexander.
I'm going to stand up for this one because I like to say this.
Sure, go ahead.
So, first and foremost, I have lived in the conditions that this city has dedicated itself to changing. Okay, I am the only candidate that has been born, not born, but raised right here in St. Paul Public Schools. So I know what it's like to grow up marginalized as a person of color in St. Paul Public Schools. Okay, we need, in my own personal opinion, someone that has the ability to tackle these challenges head on, okay? Because it's not gonna be easy, okay? We have people not only in this room, okay, but outside of this room actively working against our best interests, okay? And you need someone with the bold mindset to say, you know what, that's not going to That's not happening. That's not reflective of our community, okay? But I need your all's help, okay? I cannot do this alone, okay? If you want someone that feels like they can better clearly articulate, you know, what the heck is going on, then so be it, okay? But I'm a results-driven individual and I get things done. My number one strength, strategic partnerships, okay? And right now, that's what the city of St. Paul needs. Someone that has the ability to muster resources and leverage them accordingly. And that's what I can do for you, okay? And that's what I will do for you, okay? Together, okay? Like, together. How do I say together in Hmong? Can someone please tell me?
Okay.
Okay? Okay. All right. Najong. Afterwards, we're gonna we're gonna eat. And how? Drink. Okay. I've learned a little bit. All right. Keep talking to me. I need y'all.
Oh, so Jay, we're gonna go to Daniel. We'll get you last.
Okay, well, my lived experience, for one. I think when, a lot of times when elected officials, or people who are seeking to be an elected official run, they talk about their past experiences and where they've been. And but for me, these conditions are still they're still my conditions. I'm still just a regular person to work in a job and trying to make it. You know, having my own issues of homelessness within the last year even, you know, dealing with what affordable housing means for me. So these issues are still very much my issues. I feel very led in what I've done, and I'm very thankful for where I've been able to do work. And I think that I have an interesting perspective because I work in community, but I also have a background in real estate, which is really, you know, profit driven. And so I find myself in this really interesting point where I'm seeing we need investment and we need these things, and we need money, we need development. But at the same time, we need to be mindful of community. We have to be considerate and compassionate of people. And so I think just being in my position and working in the trenches with people on the ground, and then also being afforded the opportunities to work at tables where decisions are being made, I feel like that is something that works in my favor, because perspective is what gives you wealth.
So I wanted to share a bit about my background. I started organizing as a community organizer, meaning that I go out into the community, reach deep into the pockets, reach to people who have never been given an opportunity to share about their concerns or believe that they can actually make a difference in their community. I'm also a union steward where I work at Take Action Minnesota, and I represent the organizers in my workplace who care so deeply about making sure that every workplace is a place where there's economic justice, where we have racial justice, where we have great benefits for everyone. And in all of these like experiences that I have been a part of, some of the most disappointing is when I meet people who think that leadership is about how many years you spent at the decision-making table. Because to me, leadership is not about how many years you've been at the table. It's about understanding how you need to, how to actually bring people together and how to put puzzle pieces together to get something done. That is what leadership is about. And it's about having heart to do it. And when I think about that, I think about the campaign that we ran over at Hmong Village. Just right across the street there, Johnson and Ames, the street I was talking about earlier, that's super, super busy. Like I've talked to people who have had to wait 10 minutes just to make a left or right turn. Or I met people who had to wait 15 minutes just to cross the street. And that's actually not an issue that just like popped out of the blue. It's been there for almost 9 years, for as long as the Hmong Village has been here. And when we, so many voices have been silenced, from that situation. But when we actually started running our campaign, we didn't just talk about getting something done. We went to the county commissioner, we went to the city council member, we raised so much voices, we went to their office and said to them, we need this in the community. And even though they said no to us so many times, we persisted. And what you see over there right now is a pedestrian hawk light where people can actually press a button so they can cross that. And also this past weekend, when I was door knocking at 1000 Edgerton, which is a high rise, when we went there on Saturday morning, they still had heat. In the evening, their entire heating system shut down, and that and one of the residents there called so many people. She didn't know who to call anymore, but because she met me, she called me and said, "Hey Nelsie, can you support us? Can you do something?" And 3 hours later, we were able to get the heating. And so, leadership isn't just about getting, about how many years being at the table. It's about getting something done. And I just want to really quickly say that I met an elder in Ward 6 who said to me, "Nelsie, I'm really glad that you're running. I'm really glad that you are bold and you're not allowing people to tell you you need to wait your turn because you're someone who's young." Because we have fallen into that pitfall so many times. And he said that the East Side needed change 20 years ago. And right now is not the time, when people are jumping up. So thank you for running, thank you for being bold, and thank you for doing this for the people of Ward 6.
All right,
Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, so the question is about qualifications lead. Yeah, I sit at those tables. I've been at a lot of tables. I brought people along with me to those tables. Leadership, a lot of people especially are like, well, how come I haven't seen you before? Because I'm behind the scenes doing a lot of work. I'm in meetings with community members when community members come to call me about issues. We were talking about this issue of this new investment tool called Opportunity Zones and what it might do to the East Side. We are at those tables, I'm at those tables, holding those discussions, facilitating those meetings. I have been on the Planning Commission, right? And it helps to have that inside information, but it also helps that I've been teaching and leading. In addition to that, I'm personally investing, right? Whether I've leveraged other money for this community or even my own dollars. I think when you are physically here, it means you make an investment. It means for me, I want this to be a great neighborhood for my family, for all of our families, for all of our kids to grow up and thrive in. And so those are the reasons why I think which really says I'm going to be leading with a ton of experience, a lot of experience at those policy tables. My whole philosophy has been to bring people along with me, right? Because it's so important that we don't leave anybody behind. Because that's important. That was, and what's really exciting, and I think why we heard a lot of people talk about the same things today, is because we know and we understand. I mean, we are folks who have both the combination of the experience in the community, but I also have the professional experience too that gets things done. Because it's not easy work, but that I believe I'm the most qualified person because I have been doing this work. I have been at the tables. I've worked to make a lot of things happen. Been board chair at the SNDC, the neighborhood organization that's been working to make Payne Avenue businesses great, the Asian Economic Development Association, working to get more marketing money, working to save University Avenue when the light rail was coming in to help support businesses. And sometimes it takes time to be at those tables to make a big difference. So thank you very much. I'm grateful for the Hmong Chamber for having us come out tonight. I look forward to having many more forums where I'm able to meet with all sorts of Ward Sixers and St. Paulites. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Terry. All right, that's wrap up with the question from the committee and also question from the audience.